Good day mga ka-learners! Welcome to part 2 of our lesson on coping strategies. In part 1, we looked at the two major kinds of coping strategies, problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. Each of them can be applied to cope with a negative emotion. Remember that problem-focused coping can be used if you can deal with the problem itself, and emotion-focused coping can be used if the problem cannot be removed or dealt with. However, this differs from person to person since we look at problems very differently. In this part, we will look at a few guidelines to help you determine which approach you should use. When faced with negative feelings, we often ask ourselves, what do I do now? These guidelines should help you decide what you should do in case you do ask yourself that question. 1. Identify the negative feeling that you are experiencing. Tell yourself, this is what I feel, to give yourself a sense of ownership of your feelings. This also means you will take responsibility and act on your feelings for your own good. 2. Assess the situation or look closely at what is going on, then identify the source of your negative feeling. Look back at the 6 possible causes of negative feelings we discussed in Lesson 1. Those will help you decide how you should deal with your negative feelings. 3. Ask yourself if it is possible to address the source of the problem. If this can be done, then you should use a problem-focused coping strategy. If you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, like a bad conversation between you and a group of people or in a crowded restaurant, you can simply excuse yourself and go somewhere else. 4. If the problem cannot be dealt with directly, then it's time to use an emotion-focused coping strategy. Generally, it's best to use problem-focused strategies first, but if the source of your negative emotions is death of a loved one, then it's best to focus on reducing your feeling of grief. You can keep yourself busy to take your mind off of the loss or find someone to talk to. Remember, that's know what negative feelings you are experiencing. Find the cause or the problem. Use problem-focused strategies if the cause or problem can be addressed. If it is difficult to address or solve, use emotion-focused strategies. Now, let's talk about resources in the context of dealing with negative feelings. A resource is what you have or have access to at present that can help you cope with your problems. This varies from person to person and is usually based on their lifestyle. Let's look at this situation so you can better understand what a resource means for someone. Manny is what many will refer to as a hugot or import, someone who is really good at basketball. He's the best in his barangay and is often asked to join teams in other barangays if his barangay is not playing. He's also an ALS student like you. Right now, he is taking the ALS accreditation and equivalency exam so he can qualify for a college scholarship. He really wants to pass and has studied hard for the exam. However, he was extremely nervous on the day of the exam. Afraid that he will not remember anything, he tried to relax himself by taking deep breaths. He was able to take the test after doing so. Did you notice how Manny dealt with anxiousness, one of the negative feelings we talked about? Manny took deep breaths, similar to what he does at the free throw line to calm himself down. He looked at taking the test the same way and used the same technique to calm himself down, and it worked. We can say that being an athlete is a resource for Manny because he can use his knowledge to help him cope with his negative feelings. This, however, is one of the many resources you can tap into. Resources that you can use to cope with negative feelings can be classified into the following. Friends. They can help you solve your problems or give you emotional support. In Manny's case, if the breathing exercises did not work, he could ask some of his friends to go with him to the testing center. They could wish him luck or tell him jokes to make him feel relaxed. Environment. Some surroundings can provide comfort, like how a garden can give some people peace of mind. You can usually see this when people go for a vacation after a particularly stressful work week. A weekend out of town can sometimes do wonders for your emotional state. Personality. Some people simply have the personalities strong enough that they can handle their own emotions well. Others are quite flexible, allowing them to adapt to whatever situations they end up in. There are also those who have a never-say-die attitude and do not give up no matter what. Traits like these can help a person solve problems or get rid of negative feelings easier. Health. A strong and healthy body can enable you to handle intense negative feelings. Exercise and good habits can also help you release negative emotions. Thoughts. Having a positive outlook can help you deal with bad situations better. That's not to say you should be overly optimistic. Just take into account what you have done to prepare for something, like how Manny made sure to study for the ALS A and E exam. Groups. Being a member of a social group is an advantage because your group mates can help you by giving you support and advice. You can find these support groups at school, in your church, where you work, and the like. That's it for part 2 of lesson 2. Congratulations for finishing this lesson and this module. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of what we've learned about when to apply coping strategies. In choosing which coping strategy to use, follow these guidelines. Know what negative feelings you are experiencing. Find the cause or the problem. Use problem-focused strategies if the cause or problem can be addressed. If it is difficult to address or solve, use emotion-focused strategies. Coping resources can be anything in your life that you can use to help you cope with problems or negative feelings. That's it for this lesson and this module, mga ka-learners. I hope you now know how to deal with anger, fear, and frustration in your own way. We may not have given you more specific ways of dealing with these negative feelings, but you should now have ideas on what to do and what to use based on the lessons we've tackled. See you on our next lesson, mga ka-learners. Tandaan, ALS tayo!